Hi there, I'm Noah. Today I'm going to teach you how to make two different kinds of fidget spinners using bicycle parts. So the first kind is like this, big, and the second, sort of a star shape like this. Alright, and I'm making about 100 of these, so the tools that I'm using are pretty industrial level. You might not even need to use all the tools I'm using, but so to start out, I'm going to show you what tools I'm using. WD-40, a pair of clipping pliers, I'm not sure the real name of these, wire strippers I think, a pair of Needlenose pliers, superglue, various little odds and ends that I've saved from the bike chains. I'll show you that along the way. Bicycle chains, and these are used bicycle chains. Most of the parts I've gotten, for example, the bike chains and the center jockey wheel, are from a bicycle co-op near to me. I just go through their garbage when I get there, and I just take them for free. They're happy for me to take them. So these are the jockey wheels I use. This is the regular kind, and this is the big kind. Oop, dropped it. I use a pair of scissors. A lot of these, like I said, are optional. I also use a little pry tool for, it's made for computer repairs I do. So this is the tool that you use when you want to get the SIM card out of an iPhone. You see a little pin there. I use it for scraping. I'm probably not supposed to do that, but I do. Electrical tape. I use a Dremel because I'm making 100 of these, and that's made my life a lot easier. However, you can also use a file, and I'm going to show you that a little bit, and then I'll finish it by Dremel. Another Wen model 2305 power rotary tool. It's about $75 less than the Dremel brand, and it's just as good, if not even more powerful. The only thing is the bits that come with it, we'll be using the sanding drum one, are crap. I tried, these are the ones that come with it. They're kind of a light brown color, if you can see. The paper came off of it immediately, and it turned into like a little chainsaw, which was kind of dangerous. So I ended up buying Dremel branded bits from my local hardware store. I highly recommend you do that. You know, they'll cost you, you'll probably spend about 20 bucks in little Dremel bits, but it'll still be much cheaper than if you bought the Dremel one. What else? I have a Exacto knife, and what do you call the bearings here. Now don't make the mistake I did and buy really cheap bearings that are the wrong size and too small. I have a big old bag of tiny bearings that I don't know what to do with. Just make sure to look up what proper size bearings you're supposed to get, and I'll post in the bottom of this YouTube video what that is, because otherwise you'll have to order them again. I'll also post where I got these from, because I got a good deal. I got 100 for, I think it was about 30 with shipping. Not bad. What else do we have here? Well, obviously the file. It doesn't have to be this kind of file. Any file will do. But it should be small like this, because the idea is... Let's grab one of these here. The idea is that you're going to get in here and you're going to file. You got to make room for the... oh, I put this away. You got to make room for... for the bearing in the middle. Now, what else? You need a chain breaker. This is really important. Typical chain breaker. Doesn't have to look like this, but most look something like that. And I use a pair of scissors for cutting the electrical tape. And the last thing, which is really important, is you need zip ties. Now, again, don't make the mistake I made by buying the wrong size zip ties. So I think the first ones I got, and I haven't been able to use them because they're too thick, and I found that zip ties don't often have the width of them on it, so I would say just bring the chain that you have and kind of size it up. But this is the mistake I made. I got zip ties that were too big and they don't go in there. They can't go in, well, these don't even go in sideways, but they can't go in sideways. It won't work. There are different size chains, and I'll get to that a bit more later. But briefly, this is the kind that I'll use for the big jockey wheels. But none will fit something this big, so that's kind of useless to me. These zip ties will work. These tiny, tiny ones will work for most things. I think I can get them in here. No, they don't work for these, so there you go. But they will work for most bigger ones you see here. You can't, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so that's the zip tie situation. You'll go through a lot of zip ties. Don't be afraid to, cut them off and try again. It's not the end of the world. Another thing I want to mention really quickly is chains. If you can, if you're just making one, you might as well, buy the parts. And I'll put some more links on this. You can buy jockey wheels that you don't have to dig through, and that come with a bearing in them. There's lots of other tutorials on YouTube about that and showing you where to buy them, but I'll include that information. You can also get colored chains from a lot of stores, and that makes it pop out even more, which is kind of nice. But again, I just use ones that I could get for free, and usually people don't throw away nice chains. All right, so let's start at the beginning. So what I'm going to do, the first step, and I've already pretty much pre-cleaned these, but I've tried a lot of different methods of cleaning them. They often come off the bikes really dirty. And just for point of information, this is a jockey wheel, as I've mentioned. They're part of the rear derailleur on a bicycle that helps your bike change gears. So any bike that has multiple gears will have 2 of these on it, on the back, and they'll be kind of like this. And they'll be in a sort of a metal bracket housing. You can usually get those off. They're usually connected in one of 2 ways, and one is with a hex bolt that you need a sort of a tool that goes on top and screws around to get it off, and the other is uses a sort of Allen key to take it off. But if you're getting these parts from a local co-op bike store, and I'll put some links to the ones I went to here in Toronto. I can't recommend Bike Sauce or Bike Pirates highly enough. Then they'll have all those tools for you. Right. So there's the best way to clean these. Like I said, they come off really dirty. The best way to clean these is with just plain dish soap and hot water. I tried a lot of different things. I use lots of degreaser for the first bunch, and actually dish soap works better, and degreaser will peel the skin off your hands. You can use rubber gloves, but you might as well just use hot water and dish soap. So once they're scrubbed and clean, they don't need to be like super duper clean, especially the center part. Like I wasted a lot of time early on in getting right in here and getting this all clean. This is all going to come out. Don't need to worry about that. It's mostly just getting the outside here clean. You can always go back and clean it later. Well, at least for a while you can, until we get on to actually putting the gears on. Anyway, so you stick your file in there. And you just file away until you get a nice hole, and you'll be wanting to periodically match it up and make sure that fits. A good it takes a little while, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, but you got to get that in there. For a while, what I was doing is I was taking a Sharpie and matching this up here and drawing a Sharpie outline to make sure. Drawing a Sharpie outline to see, that I was getting an exact center, but I was finding that was less accurate, and I was making them more off center than when I just did it, like just kind of eyeballed it and did it, like checking and making sure I got it right. So I'm going back to doing that. So I'm not going to do this all because this takes a while, and I've still got to make 10 more of these suckers. But that's basically what you do. You just go around and around and around, and it'll make a lot of mess. until, you know, you got a fair enough size hole, and you see like the little kind of divot here. You're going to go right through that and a little bit into this big one. So I'm going to switch to the Dremel now and show you that. The Dremel, the Wen power tool, sorry. Apologies to Dremel, although you do make good bits. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my Dremel drum sander. That's this bit here. I'm going to put it in there. And you press this button here. Took me a while to figure this out. Turn that till it's taut, you know. And then take your little wrench tool that comes with the Wen and tighten that. There you go. Now I usually 5. It goes up to, what does it go up to here? It goes up to max, which is just past 6. I don't know if you see that. I've got it at 5 here. 5 is really fast. You could do it at 3. You know, it'll take a little bit longer. Now, word to the wise, all the bits I've got here, all the jockey wheels I've got here today, nope, this one, okay, so I'll do it with the little metal piece in it. A lot of them come out, most of them will come out, but this one is like kind of a permanent metal piece. You're going to have to drill right through that. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn it up to 4 or 5, and basically you're heating it up, and it's going to melt through. You know, be very careful. It does get really hot. I'm dropping everything. What I do, and I keep a little basket full of rags here, which I found really helpful, is I have a little piece of jean here, and I hold it in that. So we're going to start with this one, and it will melt through too. But it's, you know, it doesn't have hot metal in it, so still, it'll be quite hot. So we're going to turn it to 4. Just on the camera, sorry. So we're just going to go around in a circular motion like that. And you see here it's starting to melt. Now, I'm kind of a precarious position here. But what I'm going to do, this is probably not advisable, but oh well. What I do is I hold it kind of like this, and as it pushes through, you see it's melting here, I just drop the melted part on the ground, and I clean that up after. So, you can see this. So we're going to go right through. In fact, I'm going to turn that up a bit. You can smell it. Well, you can't, but I can smell it now. Like the melting plastic. You'll definitely. This is one. There it is. There's a really hot bit. Ow. And now you're all the way through, but this isn't going to fit. This isn't big enough yet. So what we're going to do, and we can turn it down now, is we're just going to put it over, and you can see it's uneven too. We're just going to put it over, and we're going to start finishing around like this. And this is sanding, but it's also melting a bit. And you're just going to want to keep an eye to make sure it stays fairly centered. Just like that. There we go. Now I'm going to turn this off. It's probably not ready yet. But what I do at this stage is I take these little wire strippers here and I clip and pull off the little plastic bits. Just like that. Because, I mean, they're kind of hot. You know, I also want to get a pretty close cut. And yeah, that's not, you see that's uneven there. I don't know if you see that. Alright, so, but I know, okay, so it's uneven, but now I know where to even it up. You can think that ought to be pretty close. Yep, there it is. Perfect. Now, you know, this is good, but I'm still going to have to use some glue to really keep it in tight. Ideally, it's even tighter than this, and you got to just push it in. I'd still use glue to hold it firmly, but you know, this is okay. It's also okay if it's bigger. I'll show you how to fix that. I've done that for a lot of them. That's where the electrical tape comes in. So now we're going to go to the one with the little metal bit. Oh, nope, that is when it does break through. Keep a firm grip on it throughout, because this is moving really fast, and if it fuses onto it on the middle, it becomes like a little chainsaw. So yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, you're not going to be fighting it. Like, it's not hard to hold on to, but definitely keep a firm grip. What I'll do is I'm going to go through this one, and then we'll move on to the next step. So let's see. It's different than these. You're going to want to go right through this plastic centerpiece. Sorry, I hold that better. And you're going to cut a bit. You're going to cut it away completely, and you're going to cut a bit into these little sidebars, making sure to keep the amount you cut in even. Pull that away. Just throw it on the ground. We can clean it up later. And it's hot. Better to throw it on the ground than in your lap. It actually cools down quite quickly. So you see it's gone through on these sides, so now you're going to want to concentrate more on these when we go down again. Pull that out with your fingers. You can use the clippers if you need to. Fingers should work fine. So take your... See, so we actually cut off a lot more than we needed to there, but that's fine. We can fix that. All right, so on to the next step. Put your Dremel away. Wen tool, whatever. All right. You see little bits of plastic get everywhere here. All right. So our next step here. So let's start with this one. So you can do this either way. You can put the chain on first and then put the bearing in, or you can put the bearing in and then put the chain on. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the bearing first. So you take your bearing, and there'll be a little gap. You see there, right? So there's two ways you can get that out. One is you take a Exacto knife and you pry it out, and we'll do that on one side. So I don't have a GoPro or anything, so just using my laptop camera. So you just get it in there so it holds, and then you pry it out, and it'll come right out, just like that. So that side's easy. You see, it's in a little cartridge inside. So that side's easy to get off. On this side, it might hold on, well, you'll see. So we're going to use this one on this side to get off. So you press it in like this till it holds, and then it should pop right out, just like that. Now, you see it's got little holding things. Sometimes it will bring out, on this particular kind of ball bearing, there's other kinds. Sometimes it'll bring out this little plastic piece. That's fine. Then you just take your Exacto knife or your little poker there, and you just press it back down. Now you take your jockey wheel. You see it's fair. Still probably going to need to be tightened. So what we do is find our electrical tape. I'm going to use this electrical tape in two ways. This is the first. So you'll get a sense of how thick you should make it. Because it's so close, I'm only going to do let's say 1.5, because you can always remove some. Of course, you can always add some, but removing is easier. You can take your scissors, Get it off. Now, I've done this different ways. I've cut this off before and then put it in. But what you'll find is you want it to be tight enough that when you push it through, this is going to push up a bit and you're going to lose some. If you leave it on when you push it through, that's going to be easier and you're not going to push back. You're not going to push some of it off of the centerpiece. However, if you push through, let's do that. Let's see, it's at this sense. Oh, you could add some more. All right, so I'm going to add some more. And then I'll explain. You'll find so if you push it through like this and you cut it off after, you don't get as clean a cut, and there will be, it'll look a little bit more ragged. Nah, that's not that big a deal. It's not a big deal. So let's try this. Yeah, that should be good. Okay. So then you take your super glue and you put a little line on the center here. Try not to get it on your hands because it will stick them together. Sometimes what I do is, and I'm just going to get this through before I explain that, but there we go. Just give it a second to dry. All right, and make sure, the other good thing about leaving it on like this when you put it through is that you can push it down over here, and when you push it through, you're extra sure you're not to get any glue in the bearing itself, which will fuck you up. Then you need to just do it again, like with the new bearing. So we'll make sure it's centered in there and that it's not too much to one side or the other. Well, that's drying. I'll point something out. So what I do sometimes when I put that line around is I damp it down with my finger just to get it even across. That works. It will dry the glue on your hands. You'll feel it. And you'll need to scrape it off or really wash your hands to get it off. You don't really need to do that. So the next step here is we take our wire clippers again, trusty wire clippers. And I've tried scissors, I've tried different things. I find that this is the best way of doing it to get it really close. And, just get the long edges off first. There we go. Boop. It's good. Let's see, that's pretty even. So that's pretty good. All right. So there you go. That's pretty good. All right. So the next step with this small one is, where did I put those? So I pre-prepared some chains here. Prepared some chains. So these are different ones linked together. They need to be cleaned again, actually. And here's a tip about cleaning it. You want to get your fingers in there. And typically I have cleaned these in several different stages to get them nice and clean because people are going to be playing with them, So what I did is I joined a bunch of different ones. I had a long, I'll show you, this is the wrong size, but it'll give you an idea of what I'm working with. We'll actually use this one in a second for the circular one. I had a long chain like this, actually quite a bit longer, maybe about 3 or 4 times this big. And what I do is I know I want it to be in a star shape. I'll lay this down here. So I take this and I fold it like this. You get a sense of, you know, how many links you should put in it before you stop. It doesn't really matter. And I just line this up here because I'm kind of measuring. I'm sure you could just count it, but I don't know why I just never did that. So, because sometimes, actually I do, because sometimes most are the same for the star ones on this size, but some actually aren't. Some have a smaller distance between these teeth and thus require more folds. So it's good just to measure it and be sure. Okay, so you see it's around like that. So then you just match that up and put your thumb, put your finger right there. And then you'll put it in your chain breaker right there. And break the chain, just like that. All right, I'm not going to break that one yet because I need that for something different. And then, because with these, you don't need to make any adjustments or well, you'll see what I'm talking about when I show you how to make the circular ones. They're actually, believe it or not, a little bit more difficult. So for now, we're just going to put this one together. So we're going to take our zip ties here. I like to use the thickest ones I can. Yeah. I'm going to test it here. Yeah, that'll fit. Well, let's see. It fits on those ones. I've used 2 different kinds here, so I want to make sure it fits on both. But normally you only need to test it on one side. So that's perfect. I'll take a couple more because it will take 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this in my hand and do 4 like that. So see what I mean about 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take this and you put it so that this side is up, and you just push that through there. Now if it gives you, this is fine, but if it gives you any resistance and you can't get it through, but you know it's still, it's not too wide, what you can do is you can break this apart and pull it through with the Needlenose pliers, or like this. As long as it's flat. It has to be flat, it can't be to this side. So then you go 1, 2, 3, like that. And again, you want it up like this, and you want it on the same side as this lengthways one, because these are going to connect. Push that through. And put that through. Don't put it through too far. You want to leave this pretty loose for now. 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Just like that. And again, same way. This is actually perfect because it's just really snug, but it's as snug as it can be before it can't fit through. Test that, okay. And do like that, okay. Now what I do is I pull this apart now, and I try to even up the, and you're going to use your pliers again quite a bit. Try to even this up here. Now the first couple times you do this, you're probably going to, you know, it's trial and error. You're probably going to over pull one of these sides and make it too short. If you do that, you can't really fix it. You can't back up on these, which is the idea. What you can do is you can take your Needlenose pliers, clip it, and put another one through, and fiddle with it until you get it. So, but what I'm going to do, what I've learned to do, is you hold it like this, and you pull it. Try to pull them evenly on each side. You're kind of eyeballing this, which means, you know, judging it by sight. I mean, the thing to remember is if you pull too far, it's not the end of the world. You can go back. You can clip it and put another one in. You know, these zip ties are really cheap. It's like $3 for like a whole big bag. Oh, that's not the right size bag. For like this, and what, there's like 100 in here. You know, So you see it's kind of, you try to pull it over on the side it's uneven on. All right, and just pull it until you can just fit this in. This is the way I do it, until you can just fit this in. And it will stay in, you know. And then you start lining up. Yeah, and then you start lining it up with the teeth. Let's see here. And you can sometimes pull these to help you line those up, but you make sure they're more or less on top of the place you want it to go first. Like that. Perfect. So you can see it's starting to get in there. Perfect. And it's actually, you know, the zip strips and doing it like this is actually pretty forgiving. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like it has to be really precise, but I've found that it's fairly forgiving. You just have to kind of fiddle with it. And you can sometimes, this won't back it up, but this will sometimes pull the, so you can never back it up, but in order to even it out, you can sometimes push between these to get the zip strip to push, like kind of pull over. But this one's doing pretty good. So by the time you've got it about here, take your Needlenose pliers, stick your fingers on like this, and just pull, get it really tight. That. And then test it like this. Good. You don't want to pull too tight, but that's kind of hard to do unless you're really wrenching on it, because if you pull too tight, it'll push to one side instead of sitting in the center, and it'll kind of turn concave. That again isn't the end of the world, and actually it might look kind of neat that way. Some of them do. But ideally you want to, and it'll still be loose in the center, but ideally you want to allow it to rest in the center. So then you take your Needlenose pliers, and you can clip this way or you can clip this way. If you clip this way, it will cut closer. Just like that, and then take this and cut off any extra sharp edges. And that's it. And sometimes what I'll do after I put it together is, on that rag again, is I'll put an extra bit of WD-40 on it after it's kind of, WD-40 from before is kind of dried. I don't know if that makes a difference or if it just helps in a minute, but there you go. You can see it's actually not bad. You know, I mean, it could be balanced better, but hey, it's free. Well, actually, I mean, I made 100 of these, and it's cost me about, including with tools and materials, it cost me about 150 bucks. So, you know, you could totally do this free for just one. So now we're going to make the circular one. There's a lot more space between the center and this, so that tells me already that I'm going to need to give it more electrical tape. You could probably use other kinds of tape, like duct tape or whatever, but duct tape would be harder to work with. Electrical tape seems to work just fine for the job, so. Do 2, I think. Don't overestimate how much you need. I mean, you can always cut it back, but, you know, I've found that 2 is always a good place to start. Kind of judge for yourself whether you can push it through or you want to take a little bit off. Because you want it to be snug, but you can't, you know, if you really got to push, then it's too much. good. And you see here, there's some gaps there. That's okay. So what we're gonna do, that's what the super glue is for. So what we're gonna do here is you're gonna go all the way around with super glue again, just like the star one. Oh, glue it to your leg. No, don't glue it to your leg. That's not good. Oh, and then push that through and just make sure you got it in the center. And then it's even, more or less. This will glue. This will. Okay. And that'll set really fast. So, which is the point. So give that a second though. And that's second. So then I start clipping. See, as I'm doing this, that I'm kind of, you know, taking the opportunity to even it out a little bit. Just be really careful. You don't want to pop that right out and then you have to start again. Here's an example. You see it push through. I don't know if you could see that, but it kind of the tape pulled up as it pushed through. So that's one reason that you leave it on there long. There you go. So now comes the tricky part. We go back to here. So you need a lot less chain for these circular ones, but here's the part I've found out. So you have two kinds of ends on these chains. One is the inner one where it's like rounded like that. You see that? There's like a little center in there. The other is open. So there's some official language for that, but that's what I call it. You want to measure it up where there's two sides that match with the open one. There is a way to close it with the center one like this, but involves using a Dremel and dremeling down metal. And why do that when you could do it much easier this way? So what we're going to do is we're going to go around like this and measure it up. And you're going to want to go, this is too, you see this is too small here. So you want to go one size bigger. And yeah, that is the thing about these, is like you really got to press to, and you can hear it snap like that to break it through. It seems like it's breaking and then it goes through. That just seems to be the way of it. Another thing you want to watch for is you don't want this pin to fall out, because if it falls out, you're going to have to put it back in. And you can do that, and it's totally possible, but it involves holding it with these pliers and a hammer and lining it up, and it's a real pain in the ass. So what we're going to do, So what we're going to do is we're going to just carefully push it out until it holds on just a little bit. And because different chains are different sizes, they all have a different point in that. So you just have to go very slowly and kind of eyeball it again. So that should be good right there. Oh. So now back to our electrical tape. Go around the outside like that. And you only want to go 1.5 tops, and you'll never need to go more than that. But if you do, first of all, this won't fit. It'll be too small, like it'll be too it'll be too small. And also, it won't push down into these into the gears. So yeah, 1.5 is fine. So then around, and you see these two come together here. So here's a trick I picked up. While doing this, you'll pick up lots of little bits and pieces. One of them is when you have to take an end part off like this to get to the open one. This centerpiece will fall out. Save that. You're going to use it again. So what we're going to do, I'm going to look for one here. They come, you know, they're different sizes on different ones. You got to mix and match and figure which one fits properly. This is a thin one. It's going to leave some space, but it will work. Anyway, I don't think I have a thicker one, so all right. Let me push that through there. Just even it up, try to push it in. I mean, it's going to be kind of a pain because it's the small one. Oh, we do have a thicker one. Okay, let's use that one. The thicker one you have to push that in, but I think this should fit. So I've used it on this one before. You really got to push it in, but because you do have to push it in, it will hold better, and it will help you to drive the pin through. There we go. Perfect. Just like that. You see? Like that. And now you see you've got an extra bit. So what we do is pull that apart. And pull it apart, and we keep the two little center pieces. So you've got the outside and the two little, put them there. All right, throw those out. Keep these. I'm going to put those on the table beside me. This is another way you can do it if you're doing a lot and you know they're all the same size. You can take your already cut piece and measure it up. This time we can go right through. Push that pin right out, catch it, and we'll put it in our little extra bin. Line it up. Just like that. Put your pin in there. Your little, I don't know if you call that a pin. A little washer, I guess. Sorts. Center it. Perfect. You can see it's centered. That. Put it on the table, take your good old hammer. Set it. I don't know why this comes out. And this is not good for your chain breaker, but this is the only reason you're using your chain breaker. And I mean, it's not horrible to do once. You could drive it down with the hammer, but this way is actually probably faster because it's got to be a pretty precise hit to drive it down. It up perfectly so that it drives straight in. But there we go. All right. And there we go. So you'll notice sometimes it doesn't go right through the back. That's okay. All right. And then we take our Exacto knife and we cut off the extra electrical tape. And just, you know, try to cut like kind of a little bit through, like you want to perforate it, and then pull it up and off. You won't always get it all the first time. You can go back, that's okay. And off. That was actually pretty good. Although you see, I didn't get all of it. Maybe you don't see the side. So we'll just go back. Cut it off a little bit. There we go. Perfect. I mean, ideally it'll come off in one piece, but most of the time it doesn't. That's okay. And it gets kind of, it wobbles a bit. That's actually because I pushed it through more, the, what do you call it? The ball bearing. I pushed it through more on this side than down here, so it's uneven. Let's see if we can even that out without doing it again. There we go. And it's a little bit off center, but it's actually, believe it or not, more on center than it is when I try to do it, when I try to trace it out ahead of time. Just seems to be better to eyeball it. So that's it. That's how you make fidget spinners, or at least it's how you make fidget spinners out of bike chains. If you like this, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm going to put all sorts of links for where you can get all these parts, and a big thank you to Bike Sauce and Bike Pirates in Toronto, Canada, for giving me all of this stuff, letting me go through their garbage and what have you. And I hope this helps you to make a fidget spinner of your own. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'll try to get to them. And hopefully I'll make more videos.